Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Before we start, Ms. Weathers, could we, for tonight's meeting, Mr. Brown and Mr. Gallen, delegate them as voting members since we are going to be voting on the agenda?
Yes, we can.
Do a roll call, please.
Roll call, Mr. Board Member Guyton,
Here.
Board Member Brown,
Here.
Board Member Gallen,
Here.
Vice Chair Wiley,
Present.
Chair Fernandez.
Here, present.
We have a quorum.
Do we have acknowledgement of board member absence notification?
Yes. We have Ms. Burgess, she's going out of town, and Ms. Shepherd is unable to attend tonight.
Acknowledgement of board member vacant positions?
We have three board member vacancies.
Good evening and welcome. Thank you for attending.
We have District 2 vacant, District 4 vacant, and District 5.
Thank you.
All three are the alternate members, consist of alternate member vacancies.
And I'm assuming city council is aware?
If they're not, we'll make them aware.
We'll be nominating a person in the month of August.
For which district?
I don't remember the district.
Don't worry. Thank you. Do we have any additions or deletions to the agenda for tonight?
No, we don't, sir.
Disclosure by board members?
No.
I have none, Madam, excuse me, Mr. Chair. I have none. No disclosures.
Mr. Chair, do you want a motion to adopt the agenda
Yes,
or
that
call
was
for the same?
Yep, that was the next to-do item here.
Thank you.
Can we have a motion to adopt the agenda for tonight?
So moved.
Chair, second.
We're ready for the vote. Mr. Brown? Mr. Gallen?
Yes.
Mr. Guyton?
Yes.
Mr. Vice Chair Wiley?
Yes.
Chair Fernandez?
Yes.
Unanimous vote.
Next item is approval of minutes. We do not have any minutes from the last meeting, correct?
Correct.
So there'll be none. Any unfinished business?
None, sir.
None.
New business, let's move into workshop items. Comprehensive plan workshop.
I'd like to present the principal planner for comprehensive planning, Ms. Sonny Simon.
Good evening and thank you.
I'm good.
Good evening, board. Good evening, all. Sunit Simon, Principal Planner, Development Services. This evening, we are continuing our workshop for Riviera 2040 with our Planning and Zoning Board in order to allow our board to also be a part of this process and giving their input into this process. This process, we began it last year, as you know, and we've been trying to meet at the end of each month within the last 3 months in order to go over the elements as the elements have been in draft form. We've been working with our city staff, and you'll see some members here today. We've been working with city staff. We've been putting in the input of our community that we received mostly last year and through some engagement activities over this past 2024 early in the year. And we've been putting it together, mixing it all up in order to come up with the drafts that we'll be reviewing today. Today, we're reviewing our goals and objectives. We're not going into the deep dive of policies today, but we'll be looking at our overall goals and our objectives. Who we have with us this evening, we have city staff in different specialized areas that either deal with transportation, our road network, as well as our different infrastructures within transportation, as well as our park infrastructure, park and open space. And so we are hoping that this is more of an engaging process. I absolutely hate it that we are sitting in these rows so far and across from one another, but we will make this work and we'll try to make this an intimate party where we have a great conversation. This is not that stuffy feel where you have to feel like you can't talk, because I'm expecting conversation on this one. But what we will need from you guys as board members, we learned from our attorney, is that we're not having conversation amongst you all, but everything you guys say, we also need for the public to hear. So you'll be talking into your mics and not saying, hey, buddy, what do you think about this one? But you'll be asking us all here together what our thoughts are on it as well, and then telling us your thoughts at the same time. Our goals, like I said, for this evening is for you to review the language and see if this is how you feel as if our city, the direction our city wants to go. Some of the language that you'll see, oh, wrong computer. Some of the language that you'll see, you'll start to notice that in the language, there are some underlined places. Whenever you see it underlined, it means it's new language that we'll be addressing. And I wish we can turn this light off. And then at times, you'll also see strike-throughs. That's language. And if you see it looks at just regular, normal, it's existing language that we already had, and we believe that we want to continue going forward with this. First element that we'll be working on is on transportation. The transportation element, the purpose of this one is really to plan for a multimodal transportation system. So we're not only talking about just we're also talking about public transportation. We're talking about our network, which also includes our bicycle system or other non-motorized cycle systems. What we want to make sure that we're addressing is traffic circulation. We also want to talk about the existing and proposed major thoroughfares, the types that we have, the locations that there are, and the extent of that we have in them, of the transportation routes, including bicycle and pedestrian ways. What I left at your table before we actually get into some of the language, what I left in front of your seats are little maps. Those are maps most likely of your district. If I have one of your districts, I apologize and I gave you something else because I figured that you can help me out either way. And I want, as we kind of go through this, and you don't necessarily have to do it tonight, by next meeting, I'd like for you to look at that map and think about some of our areas that really need addressing. Some of our traffic areas where you're like, this is always a bottleneck here. Or over here, we have people that are getting hit by cars all the time as they try to cross the street. Or over here, this needs more parking near here because people are parking as today, Chair Fernandez told me, people are parking in Singer Island in order just to kind of come over to the different parks that we have. So those are important parts of our conversation for today. And I'd love for you all to please note them on the maps that you have in front of you. But that's for our free time. I wanted us to talk about what has our community been saying. We've had 34% of our respondents to our surveys talk about they're needing a safer, more comfortable sidewalks, crossings, and bike lanes. They feel as if we can make them safer and that they have to be more comfortable. When we say comfortable, it means that I am not going to be afraid to get on my bike, and I'm not going to be afraid to walk down that street without thinking that something's going to come at me and hit me, right? Comfortable also includes, I had a family that told me her husband has had surgery. He can no longer do some of the sidewalks that are kind of bloating. Sometimes our sidewalks, after a while, I guess the heat that we have and the concrete we're using, sometimes they bloat a little bit. And so outside our home, they can no longer walk those sidewalks. And so those are some of the things that we need when we say, what are some of our needs? We start addressing some of these things that are happening. We had 28% said they'd love more walkable services and amenities that they can go to where they don't have to get into their cars, but they're able to get to different stores, they're able to get to different restaurants, a smoothie spot, without having to get into their car. We've had 15% saying slowing down of vehicles in their neighborhoods. I know we've gotten this a lot, but it continues to be part of the conversation. Parking improvements, as we talked about, as well as better transit options. But better transit options were 3%. to going to from. So that was pretty interesting to see. So we're getting into the workshop now. As I told you, we have our friends here with us from staff, and I understand I try to get you guys in the conversation now so we can get on home. We'll still be here, but to release you all. So multimodal, I want us to look at this picture. What do you feel, what do you see in this picture that you like? And what are some things that you don't like? And this is a question to you, it's not rhetorical.
Well, during the last meeting, we stated on the bus stops,
Mhm.
you got no shade protection. This is Florida.
No shade protection.
Sun is beating down on you, and there's nothing there to protect our public. Now, they're already doing it in Dade and Broward, but I'm sure we can catch up here in Palm Beach County.
Yeah, and we have it in different places. I think it's more of mandating it, right?
Yes.
Especially from our developers, and be able to tell us a little bit more, about our bus shelters. But I think it is something that we can ask more of. That's all we got.
No. I take the bus shelters first. The county is about to roll out a program trying to replace a lot of the shelters. Of course, like any governmental entity, it is not an infinite amount of funds available.
Mm-hmm.
So we have to stay within the budgets. But what has been happening is when developments are done, they are being required. Now, Riviera Beach is good at it too, requiring them,
Mhm.
if it's on a bus route, to provide the county with a transit easement and build a shelter. So that has been very helpful. But the county does understand the need, and even the county now has some funds that we got from the federal government that we're going to use to start replacing shelters around the county. The other thing that I see in this photo here, where the bikes are going,
Mhm.
many communities, when they have bike lanes, they have bike barriers, the barrier between the traffic
And the biker.
and the
Mhm.
biker. Now, it's not a physical barrier, but they have things trigger or acknowledge that a car has come over in the bike lane. But it is important to have something there. The crosswalk, that is very important. People try to dash across streets sometime, and just like the trains, sometimes they don't make it.
On time. Mhm.
So now we, as the public bus company now, we are on trying to put bus stops near crosswalks, because in the middle of the block, people are dashing across the street, and like I said, some of them not making it. So we're trying to do as much as we can to ensure that, at least on our end, we're not kind of enticing people
Excellent.
to take those dashes. But overall, I think the concept is good, and we are located in a city where we have the four major modes right here in our vicinity:
Mhm.
sea, air, road, and rail. A port is right in our city. And the reason I mention that is that at another discussion, we'll trigger how we can promote and solicit companies to come here that require being close to transit facilities to move products and stuff. That's another discussion, but we're in a good position to really use all of those different transit modes.
Okay, so, I meant to do that space on that one. Um, so in front of you, you have a long sheet of paper that is in orange. On your long sheets, you guys don't have this. On your long sheets, you also have some stickies, some stickers. One set is green and one set is orange. Okay? What we'll be doing today is we're going to do two things. One, we're going to read the goals and objectives. And then next to it, it says something like, do you like it or something? Do you like it? Yes or no? Is it a good objective? Yes or no? And if it's a yes, I want you to use a green sticky and you put it in that box. And if it's a no, you think you could use some cleaning up, I'd love for you to put orange sticker. And then if you have comments on how you can change it, there's a box next to it. I'm asking you to put your comments in. I do ask that we put our comments in today because that's the best way for us to record what your suggestions are. Yes, we will have conversation, but I would love for us to actually write it down so that way I know how to go back and correct or edit our objectives, okay? So we'll start off with our goal, and you can read ahead as much as you want. I'm just gonna kind of help lead, but you can read ahead as much as you want. For our goal, we're looking at two different goals. One's a little longer and one's a little bit shorter. With our comp plan this time around, we were trying to keep our language simple. The first one is what we had originally. We want to keep we've suggested that we keep the same idea, but we have another language below that we're saying maybe that language might be a little sure it makes sense for you and that we're not expert when it comes to our city staff. Mr. Roberto, we're going to ask for your opinion occasionally. You can jump in or you can sit out for a little bit, but what we're wanting to know, does this make sense for us when we're talking about transportation? Is it aligned with what we're doing? Is it old and we just have to say, hey guys, there's a new way to look at this? Or is it a little bit, hey guys, we don't even have the infrastructure to do this yet, so great idea, but not right now. But I want us to keep our hats on that this is between 10 to 15 years. So we're looking at future at the same time, right? So within the next year to 15 years, are we even able to achieve this? So by 2040, will we be able to get this? And I also have safety. I have our firefighters with us today because the questions that we're asking chiefs are, does this make sense for our trucks that are going up and down the street? Does this make sense for people in general? What have we been seeing are causing a lot of safety concerns? And so whatever we say, we want to be exciting, we want to be innovative, but we want to also be smart, right? We want to make sure that our streets are safe. So we're asking you guys. As for parks, like we talked about, Mr. Young, and maybe you guys should introduce yourselves. Yeah, sorry, we should do that too. As it comes to parks, connectivity is huge. How do we get to our different parks? And so you'll see we have language both in our parks section and our transportation section when we talk about connectivity in our streets. I will ask the gentleman to introduce themselves. I think that's a great idea. I can come with the mic or you can come on up if you want. Come on up, be official. And just kind of tell us who you are here in the city and the work that you do.
Good evening, Casey Young, Parks and Recreation Director. I've been here since February of this year, just working, learning the parks, looking for different ways to improve them, and also recreation programs for the parks as well. So again, I've been working with on the comp plan along with Ms. Simone in order to look at different languages and different goals for the parks and open space element. Thanks for this opportunity tonight.
Thank you.
Good evening, Chair, Vice Chair, Board members. Roberto Travieso, Director of Public Works for the City of Riviera Beach. Thank you for the invitation to be here tonight. And my department services streets and grounds throughout the city. So transportation is directly connected to what we do on a daily basis, and we're happy to collaborate with the planning staff in the Development Services Department, with this body, with other city staff, to make sure that we have a comprehensive and inclusive comprehensive plan for us to use as a guiding map, a roadmap as we go forward. So looking forward to the conversation, and happy to be here. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Keith Golden, Assistant Fire Chief with the City of Riviera Beach. I have over 30 years in the fire service. I, like Roberto, am here to be, I'm very glad to be here to be a part of this collaborative process, because we do have a lot of trucks on the road, and we have to keep in mind that every adjustment that we make, it shortens the road for us, and then it could slow down emergency services. So I'm glad you guys are doing this, and whatever we can do to assist, we're here to help. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Good evening, Board. Mark Johnson, Assistant Fire Chief for River Beach Fire Rescue. Been with the city for 26 years. As Chief Golden just said, when it comes to safety with the city, traffic's not going to get any better. It's going to get worse and worse and worse. And from a public safety standpoint, you need to take into two considerations. One, the technical part is the weight, the size, and the turning radius of the vehicles. You also have to take in consideration the operational aspect of the vehicles parking in the streets for calls. So when you lay out your plan, just keep in mind that you're going to want bicycle lanes, you're going to want bigger sidewalks, but I can't tell you the size of the trucks in the future. I can tell you what they are now or what they're not going to be. So they're only getting bigger and heavier. So those considerations need to be taken. Thank you.
So I'm hoping that the city departments get together with each other, because that was one of the things that I had brought up and I wrote down, is make sure whatever the city decides on transportation and roadways, that they coordinate with our emergency vehicle, fire department, and police, because those rigs, depending on the parking on each side, now you're adding a bike lane and who else knows what. They're going to have a difficult time making the turn. You do not want to waste a precious second on a response time.
Right. And so that's the work that, this is part of the work that we're doing today, and this is part of the work that we've been doing, has been meeting with our different departments, and in order to have all that input into this conversation. So our first goal is what we're trying, and if you've probably already read it, and I'm thankful for that. Our first goal is to provide a safe, convenient, continuous, comfortable, and aesthetically pleasing motorized and non-motorized transportation system, which is intricately related to the land use pattern and improves the level of mobility of all city residents and visitors. The question is, do you find this an all-encompassing goal for us to try to figure out how do we make a system that's safe and convenient, it's continuous, it's comfortable and aesthetically pleasing at the same time, and it's keeping in mind the land use patterns that we have, and it's improving the level of mobility, all types of mobility for all of our residents. Is this a good goal for us to reach for as a city?
Yes.
And the next question, if yes is for everyone, is within the two goals, would we like to truncate that to say provide residents and visitors a safe, continuous, comfortable network for all types of movement? Are we taking something away that's important, or should we leave it to the first initial goal that was written?
I think it first encompasses everyone,
Mhm.
residents and vehicles.
Okay. Anyone else?
I'm sure we're going to study each area and see what the needs are. One of the things we could do is, like we discussed before, is limit the amount of vehicles on the road by having public jitneys going from the city to our beaches, our city to recreational areas, residents to City Hall.
We'll do that one. I think we'll see that objective coming up. I think it's objective 3 or 4 with the public jitneys. Okay. So well, on your papers, if you can have a discussion out loud, but you can decide, you can put your green or red if you love it or hate it. But for right now, it sounds like we're okay with it. And we think that the first one is the better one. The objectives that will be trying to reach that goal, because remember, our objectives are feeding to the goal to make sure that we can get to that goal. Let's talk about street design standards. Looks better on my computer than up here. This happens to me every time. The city shall continue to maintain street design standards for all roadways to ensure that construction of new streets and repair of existing streets will result in safe, balanced, livable streets that can be used for all forms of travel, including non-vehicular modes of travel. What I've heard so far is Chief has said that, great idea, but remember we have these big trucks that are coming in. So we have to remember when we're talking about design, making sure that the width of the street still can support our safety vehicles. Anything else? Does this look like a goal that we will be able to have policies that talk about resulting in safe, balanced, livable streets? The picture that you see to the right, which is a little hard to see. I was just in Baltimore in a placemaking conference a couple months ago, and I thought it was pretty amazing. I don't know about safety trucks making their way on that. However, this was fascinating to watch. It's Baltimore, so I'm pretty sure lots of safety vehicles are going up and down. But this was interesting to see because I thought the parked cars were moving, but they actually were parked. And I was like, wow, the bike is protected throughout the whole time on that stretch. But anyways, so I just showed a picture of some street designs that are trying to balance the different modes of mobility there, and then having the trees and having that sidewalk there that's shaded or slightly shaded in order to make it a comfortable and aesthetically pleasing space.
I have a suggestion.
Yep.
I heard that one of the two assistant chiefs mentioned the turning radius. What is that turning radius right now that's required?
Mr. Chair, to be honest with you, I don't have that information with me, but when you're talking about turning radius with fire trucks, we have a ladder truck, which is different from the truck, which is different from the engine, which is different from the rescues, which is different than the staff cars. So for me to try to give you that number tonight, I wouldn't be able to give you that. It's a very mathematical thing because you have to, not only do you have the turning radius, but you also have the incline and decline of the vehicles that go down the road. So it's a lot more information than just turning radius. But if that is something that the board and you will need, if you could just email me at the department, I will get that information for you.
The reason why I asked because I remember seeing like 45 degree.
It could be. I'm not going to
Okay.
try to answer a question I
That's
don't have the
okay.
answer to tonight.
That's fine. Your answer was good.
Can I ask a question?
You sure can.
Whatever it is that we have in the books now,
Mhm.
are they suffice? Should we be improving them?
We should improve them because I can't tell you what it's going to be next year and the year
Right.
after that. They've gotten better as the years have gone on with the vehicles, with the turning radius and how they're being manufactured. But what 5 years down the road or 10 years down the road, since this is a long-term project. It's like when you're building something, let's just take the fire station, for instance. We built the fire station for 50 years. So your roadways and your mindset have to be 5, 10, 15, 20, 25 years down the way. As she spoke with this picture here, the one thing that I have noticed is all the intersections that we've seen in pictures, they're not visible. They're not lit up like other cities. I went to Indianapolis and they're all fluorescent and they have different crossings so you can actually see where the crosswalks are. That is the same thing that they have in Indianapolis there. But Indianapolis, a lot of those roads that are there clog up emergency vehicles because they end up being one way, not both ways, because you can't build a road that's going to have a bicycle lane on each side and parking on both sides to go both ways. So when she said put our hats on and think out of the box, if you're driving, let's just say a dump truck down that road and somebody gets out of a car on the driving side, what's going to happen? You're not going to stop that truck. We can have all the lights and all the sirens that we want to. Some people are just not going to hear it. We have elderly. We have people that are hearing impaired that are driving. So your roads have to go with safety. And you have to think of what it's going to be like. If that kind of sums up. I know I went a little bit off what you asked, but I do agree with the walkways being a little bit more of triangles and lit up with fluorescent different colors and things like that. So, but I will get that information to you, sir.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, Mr. Guy.
I have a question for the chief. You were indicating that you're not sure about the turn radius.
Yes, sir.
And other standards. Obviously, to design roads and to ensure that our emergency vehicles are able to navigate them, you being an expert, we're going to be relying on you to provide the information to design the roads.
Yes, sir.
Because obviously those who are not in the industry would not have that knowledge. So my question is, are there, like any other industry standards for certain size vehicles, what would be required to allow them to turn? Because definitely we would need some type of metrics in order to design the roads. And I still want to hear from Fire, but I'm sorry, you was the Public Works
Director. So anytime you're designing a road, you follow federal guidelines that designate, and specify the width, the grade, the construction manner for the road. Also, those plans undergo significant review, not only through the planning community, but also first responders, police, fire, public works, so the various departments during the process of designing and planning for a road construction, for a new road construction, or for a significant improvement of a road construction, those designs will undergo review to make sure that the new work that's going to be completed meets the most current standard, because standards vary, they change over time. So the same for lighting, the same for the crosswalks, the same for sidewalks. So there are federal and state standards that have to be considered and already factor in the standard size of a ladder truck, for example. So all that, is considering, and we also seek input from, the people with the expertise, in this case, the fire rescue, that will provide, comments on there. But we already have that information available, those specifications in terms of how much right of way we have available, what is the length and the width and the turning radius of a number of trucks, not just emergency trucks, but importantly, emergency trucks, and then all that is factoring into the design.
Yeah, so you answered my question. There are industry standards.
Yes,
That-
not just industry. There are federal transportation standards that are comply with, and we quality control that during the review process to ensure that is designed consistent with those standards and that is constructed consistent with those standards.
Do we have outside review outside of the city that inspects road design, the major projects? Does the county come in? Does the state come in and take a look? Is there anyone outside of the city that comes in? The answer is yes.
Well, I'm coming in objective 1.3.
Okay, okay.
We have an intergovernmental coordination that occurs where we talk about from the county level as well as the state level. We sometimes say, but we do have an intergovernmental.
Okay, and I'd like to hear from fire.
It's called concurrence, and so that we just
Yeah.
seek concurrence from them to make sure that we're not missing something, that they concur, they agree with the design that we're proposing or that our consultant working on our behalf is proposing.
Okay, sounds good. Is your background engineering too?
Transportation.
Transportation, okay.
Yeah, to Mr. Trevioso's point, that's what I was coming to say, that there is federal guidelines that exist, and that's what normally is followed. My biggest issue with this is, I'm trying to remember the street. I know it's in West Palm, right in front of Lakes of Laguna. They have a bike lane there, and they have these little round, almost like an upside down noodle, like they cut a tire or something. And those things in this community would hurt us bad. You know what I mean? So when you guys start thinking design, start thinking things like that, take that off the table. Because if our fire truck has to swing wide to get around something or has to run over it for whatever reason, it's going to tear up our trucks. And that's what we don't want. You know, obviously we want to protect our bikers and stuff like that. And then we got to just start looking at other communities. Like I was just down in Fort Lauderdale, and then where there are crosswalks and stuff, those things are lit. And they have a little sign there that say, hey, stop for pedestrians and crosswalk. Little things like that will help just increase the safety of our people and make the streets, what did you say, livable and all that other stuff. That'll help increase the safety exponentially. So to Mr. Trevioso's point, he was definitely correct. There's guidelines that exist, and I'm sure we'll follow them to the T.
Sounds good. Thank you. Now, and to Ms. Simone, and I'm gonna just make a statement, a personal statement regarding designing roads. From my perspective, the first thing that we should consider, and everything else to me comes secondary, is safety. Then we start considering everything else, but that issue of ensuring that the safety vehicles can get in and navigate, and the design is not dangerous to pedestrians walking. You know, the safety issue is paramount in my mind, and everything else is fluff.
So would you want, because right now when it's a safe, balanced, and livable, it kind of puts them on the same level in my head. Would you want to say prioritizing safety?
I'm only speaking for me, but the answer
Okay.
is
In your
an unequivocal
comments.
yes.
Yeah, in your comments, maybe we can write prioritizing safety. So that, I know you're speaking for yourself, but I think
Yes.
yourself speaks for a lot of people too, and it's important to have that noted. Well, there we go. The city shall emphasize safe and efficient management of the city's transportation system. I'll start talking about it. I'm kind of going through because I'm not having long discussions on them because I feel like
Sure.
you guys have already read them and said yes or no on them.
Be here all night.
Amen, praise God. So I'm going to move to goal 2. And this is me saying, and you can tell me, Cindy, you've gone too fast. If you need me to go through reading the other ones, but I feel as if we've kind of gone through deliberation on them all, because they're all talking about the balance, the safety, and livable streets. Goal 2, preserve and enhance livable development patterns that support the city's vision to provide for a safe, convenient, and efficient motorized and non-motorized transportation system that satisfies transportation needs of the city's residents and visitors. The difference between this one and the first goal is this one is emphasizing our development patterns. When we look at how we develop in mind, so that way we're not causing sprawl is pretty much what we're trying to say here, right? And so to reach these buses and cars and bikes and spaces, we're able to get to point A to point B without having to depend only on our auto like we currently do. We'll say today, wrong computer, switch it up. There we go. And so we start talking about how to reach that goal is one, talking about land. Okay? So this is what pretty much our board deals with. The city shall coordinate management of the transportation system with the adopted CRA master plan, as well as the goals of working on today of our future land use element, that'll be in our future land use element, and the future land use map. So that means we're tying in what we'll be considering in a few weeks or a few months about land use with. We're also saying that the city establishment and dedication, and this is page 2 for everybody if you haven't gotten it yet. The city should require the establishment and dedication of appropriate right-of-ways based on the impacts of transportation systems resulting from the proposed development and the needs of adjacent neighborhoods. Go ahead and tell us if you love it or if you hate it. The city shall require the establishment of dedication right-of-ways based on the impacts of the transportation system resulting from the proposed development and the needs of adjacent neighborhoods and communities. I think this is a big one as we talk to our developers every time and the needs that we have for our community. We're also talking about creating a mobility master plan within the next 10 to 15 years. One of the things that we found is that we don't currently have one, and it would be great for us to start to looking at creating a multimodal mobility master plan as an ongoing policy framework that prioritizes infrastructure projects that expand and build a network conducive to all present and future mobility forms. This was in our time where we talked about Vision Zero back in 2010. As a city, we have not approached this just yet. We know that this is what the county is asking us to start looking at. It's bringing back an established objective, but I put a little picture there so that way we all kind of know what it really means to see if it's something that we believe that we can be pursuing in the next 10 to 15 years. It says the city shall establish a Vision Zero policy to reduce transportation and traffic-related deaths and serious injuries to zero. I think it's a big goal, but the idea that they're trying to say is that deaths are preventable. And they're also trying to say that we know we can ask the human to do things, but let's plan knowing that humans have failures when they're trying to cross streets or they're trying to walk down streets, right? We're also saying that how do we prevent these fatal and severe crashes? Looking at it from a systems approach. Sir.
There's something jumped out at me and we were moving fast, but.
And I can go back.
Yeah, 1.5, I just have a quick question.
Go back.
It won't take long.
Nope, no problem.
It said the city shall continue to maintain provisions that allow for exceptions to the city's level of service standards. That when you say exceptions, are you talking about allowing more traffic than it normally would allow, or fudging the standards, or what are we talking about?
For this specific one, right now, the way it relates to our city is that we have, like in our CRA area, right off of Broadway. So in that area, there are some, I want to be careful on how I say this. The TCEA is what we have, where we have a traffic concurrency exception area. Mm-hmm. And so that would be the exception to what we're allowing.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Understood. County has that too. They have TCEA.
From the county.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So this is the branch that's within Riviera.
Okay.
Is that okay for everyone else? I thought this was an interesting fact. I found this one when we talked about Vision Zero. This is nation statistics. This is not a Riviera statistic. But it said that, I'm looking at the bottom where it says 80% of Blacks are most likely to die from accidents that involve pedestrians. And then within low-income communities, we're 3 times more likely to be victims. And I thought that was pretty huge, especially within a community such as ours. And so the ideas behind our county pushing for Vision Zero. So you guys decide yay or nay if you're okay with that, and we go from there. The third goal that we'll talk about, this is another picture from Baltimore. I just really love the street that I was walking down. It's talking about the pedestrian infrastructure. You tell me if I need to slow down. Okay. Okay. I think I'm done with you guys. Not you, Mr. Young. But you are welcome to continue to stay. And we're not done with transportation, so you can totally stay. So don't leave. He doesn't want you to go. So this one, I love this picture. And I love this street. And the reason of my day, and felt pretty cool walking it. So our goal: provide a safe, convenient, continuous, I don't know if you notice these words continue to repeat themselves, continuous, comfortable, and aesthetically pleasing transportation environment that promotes walking. So the first objective, and I think the only objective for this one, is improve the pedestrian safety on streets within the city by providing adequate facilities such as wider sidewalks, buffers from travel lanes, and remember, Chief had said, careful on some of those buffers, shade trees, pedestrian scale lighting, shorter crossing distances. So not having a crosswalk at one intersection and then waiting a whole nother mile to have another one, because that's why we have people running across. Refuges in large instances, street furniture. Develop a park once concept at activity centers within the TCEA boundary. This is an old policy because you notice that it's not underlined. Remember I said underline is something that we've added. So these are policies that already existed, right? I want you to look, and I know Chief has already commented on one thing when we're talking about those buffers. I want you to also look at it just to say what makes sense and what do we want to take out, and make comments on your sheets and talk out loud. Let us all know what you're thinking about this particular objective when it comes to our pedestrian activity. And if we need to split this up, because I kind of felt like it should have been 2 things instead of.
For 3-1 here, and looking at the picture that you had previous, you said of Baltimore, Maryland, the road. Can you go back to that picture?
There we go.
Okay, and like you said, the buffers between the travel and the pedestrians walking. With Riviera Beach, trying to scan the whole land, and I was trying to think that safe. So to improve pedestrian safety on streets within the city by providing adequate facilities such as wider sidewalks, how would we, without taking so much property up, with majority of the property into wherever the business is, or whatever, or if it's a home area or apartment complex or whatever, and then that would definitely not create shorter crossing distances, because by expanding that, you will actually be making that longer. And trees and everything, I think that'd be great, like you say, to separate that part. But again, I'm just trying to figure here, and if anyone can help me with it, where would this actually fit into Riviera Beach, given that's how we're designed right now?
And while you're looking, when sidewalks are used, it's not necessarily as wide as what we're seeing there. The typical size now, I think, is 6 to 8 feet, and the Public Works Director can 6. Yep. So I was accurate. But now I see them 8, 9, 10. But oftentimes 2 in commercial areas for larger developments. The government entity requires them to give more right-of-way, which would allow for public needed wider sidewalks. And I see the Public Works Director is nodding in agreement. So these are ways that we try to comply with wider sidewalks, but not,
Of course not that one. Of course not that one.
not that. That and that appear to have a very deep setback that allows that walk there. But yeah, when we're talking about wider sidewalks, it's not necessarily what we saw right there.
And also in that situation, even if we have sidewalks and I was thinking again through the years of being born and raised here in the city, and hopefully we go to the point where we are now becoming the perfect place to, as we say, work, live, and play. Where will we have the public will be able to utilize that space? Because I'm trying to think, where do I see that many people walking up and down certain areas where that will be utilized at? Like, for example, in that picture right here, well, not a picture there, but let's just say people were walking up and down and going to a proper destination, because we don't have a downtown area, right? And we don't have besides the beach area over at Singer Island, and of course the beach area here up under the bridge. Where will we have on the mainland side where we would have the necessary use for wider sidewalks to where there will always be constant people walking up and down the block to, for that?
May I?
Yes, ma'am.
So before I talk about this picture, so what you're describing on our side, and today I took a picture of him. I just didn't have enough time to put it on my computer because I was driving and taking pictures and being that person that was about to call the fire chief to come save me. But so people ride their bikes, they ride their e-bikes up and down Blue Heron.
Mhm.
They usually do it on the sidewalk. You won't necessarily see them on the street, right? So it requires a little bit more width. And so where you'll know, because I stand out there randomly for some random reasons half the time, we have public land that we could take up a little bit more to open up. And we can ask for a little bit more of our right of way. Some of those are established places, so they're already there.
Right.
But and so to not take away from the street, we'd be taking away from, we'd be asking some easement. However, there is a need. I'm not saying we can do it, but there is a need for it because the bikes are already there. People are already walking on it. So we know that there's a demand for it, right? So when our developments come in, these are the things that we need to think about when our developments are coming in and say, hey, we're going to ask for a little bit more from your side in order to get that wider sidewalk. And we have one of our big ones, the one that you guys passed last month was it last month or earlier this month, Ocalina. They have provided that pedestrian path on Lakeshore Drive with that mindset that they need to give us wider sidewalks so people can walk up and down Lakeshore Drive. That was part of the agreement that we did on that. So that's part of that conversation. When development's coming in, we keep in mind that we ask for a little bit more so we have those wider sidewalks. Go for it. Can I tell about this picture? I don't know if you guys see the famous person.
That was a hot day. I just wanted to comment, going back to the language that we see on that goal we were just looking at, and then also on the first one earlier, I do have some issues, with convenient, and aesthetically pleasant and continuous. Because in a lot of cases, when it comes to roadway design, those terms tend to be prohibitive of each other. So certainly I do agree that safety must be the overarching concern or consideration, when it comes to design. But I prefer words such as connected and accessible versus continuous and aesthetically pleasing, because oftentimes, safety and convenient don't go hand in hand. And also it's about human behavior and what we do with this safe facilities, and the safety devices and the improvements that are actually put in place for us. Because you could spend millions of dollars putting in safety improvements, and I could, in a snap, completely bypass them and render them useless and ineffective in a way. But I think the board is probably familiar with the concept of complete streets. And to the board members' question in terms of where in the city could we implement that, there are locations, and it is going to be extremely challenging because it's a very dynamic and complex issue. There are communities within the area. Don't want to isolate or mention any of them, but there are communities where property owners are using the swell as a parking spot. So because there is no on-street parking. So while we're trying to address the issue by bringing in complete streets that will bring landscape with native plantings, that's going to improve our stormwater management and the quality of our stormwater discharges, while also providing on-street parking and beautifying our neighborhoods. All of those things come at a cost, not just financial, but also because I may lose my one parking spot that's actually a swell, that's actually city right away, that's right in front of my property. I may have to park 300 feet down the road because that's where the on-street parking was provided in that design. And I remember during my time in the town of Lake Park, and where I served in the same role, we were designing complete streets. And during some of the workshops, we had addressed concerns from property owners where they didn't want a bioswale in front of their properties. They preferred to have on-street parking because they usually entertain a lot of guests. So in some situations, we were able to actually accommodate, it was basically swapping, one component versus the other where it wasn't prohibitive. But in some other cases, we did not have the flexibility on there. But to make long story short, you don't address each section of roadway in the same manner. You have to specifically design it in a way that best meets the very diverse and complex conditions of that road section, taking into account the concerns of property owners, taking into account the business environment, the commercial environment that's in that area, etc. So we do have opportunities to implement complete streets within the city, but again, there are some communities here where it's going to be a challenging conversation that we're going to have, because you cannot have there's going to have to be a compromise. You cannot have it completely one way or the other. There are going to be some compromises that will have to be reached in order to achieve all of these different goals: the environmental goals, the aesthetics goals, the transportation and the connectivity goals, etc. But it's not a one size fits all or one design fits all. Each roadway section has to be considered, and all these different factors have to be designed against that.
Mr. Chair. I'm sorry. What was your last name?
Travieso.
Mr. Travieso, you mentioned complete streets a few times. And one thing that I encourage staff to do, because this is on YouTube, and we may know what you're talking about, and those in the audience do. Could you give a brief summary for those who may be watching or watch it later that may not have a background in this? What a complete street.
Absolutely. So a complete street is a transportation system that is inclusive of all modes of transportation, that considers environmental factors. And the best way for me to describe it is to describe the different components. So I mentioned earlier that a complete street looks after the level of service for that roadway. So you might have, and this is a great graphic. So you address the vehicular traffic on there, not just for the current required level of service, but for the future. So you want to do traffic studies that will project future economic activity in that corridor to make sure that you don't build a road that will become inadequate in a matter of a couple of years because of commercial activity, and all of a sudden you're not effective. You have a traffic jam. Emergency crews are not able to get to places. So you want to make sure that the vehicular traffic facilities, the travel lanes, address current and future needs on there. And the one project I mentioned earlier in the town of Lake Park was actually they call it a traffic, a road diet, they call it. So it was a 4-lane road that we were looking to reduce to 2 lanes and convert to a complete streets concept. So it will have included, or it will include, because the project is forthcoming, bioswales, which will help to improve the water quality for the stormwater discharges. It includes on-street parking. It includes travel lanes. It included traffic calming components such as speed tables, protected crosswalks with pedestrian actuated LED lighting. Transit stops are also important on there, and they will certainly be included in the design.
What about streetscape?
As in
landscape.
As in landscape?
Yes,
As in landscape? Yes, absolutely. Yes.
Well, I mean,
So-
the term,
so-
some
so-
say streets.
So the entire concept is built or designed against or around landscape. So when I say bioswales, that's exactly what I'm referring to. It's actually landscape that also serve, that is incorporated into the drainage system. So it looks beautiful, but there's a lot of science and engineering behind that, that provides for efficient and productive drainage on there. So certainly landscape is part of that on there. And one more thing is also, it includes a joint use path, what I call a multi-use path. So Embanian Boulevard in West Palm Beach is one such a roadway that comes to mind. If you had an opportunity, or if you have an opportunity to travel through there, you'll see that on the north and the south sidewalks, they have a joint use path that essentially services pedestrians, bicyclists, people on the mopeds, and there are different ways to design that, so you could separate them on there. But those sidewalks are 10 foot wide, and it services again all modes of transportation on there. So typically, again, you have your bike lanes, you have your multi-use path, you have your own street parking, you have your landscape and your streetscape and your bioswales, protected crosswalks. So again, just like the name implies, complete streets includes every component that will be desirable for helping people get to where they need to be in a safe
Efficient way.
fashion, efficient manner.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Well, one more question, sir. Because I know you may be about to leave. Because I know she was saying that the part that we needed you for is almost over. But I wanted to ask a question. I guess it's something that's off topic, but I know is having a conversation with Mr. Golden I guess a couple of years ago, and talking with some of the people who were previous board members, that some of the issues we have with the fire trucks and emergency vehicles, especially coming through the neighborhoods and everything, and the issues we have is that some of our streets were made pretty narrow at some point. And so now I know for myself, I had a parking area built into my property, to where is now I can put 4 or 5 vehicles in my property. So I know everyone's not able to do that. But what the problem is now is that we're having a lot of vehicles that are on the street now. So if we have a house on the left side that has, parking on the street, then we have a house on the right side. I'm going down the block one day and I'm trying to get down, and I'm scared that I'm gonna hit someone's, mirror or something, because it's not enough, or let alone a kid may be in the road and now I have to kind of swerve off a little bit, and it's kind of a danger of hitting the child, or to the point to where if there's another vehicle coming down my way and I'm going this way, now I'm almost have to back up. Is there anything that we're doing in the city right now to where we may be able to implement some of this to where we'll be able to open up the city enough to where we will have that, so where this would be safe, so just in case our police chief is coming down the block and we were trying to get a fire out and he can't even put his vehicle down that road because there's not enough space to put one of their vehicles into. Because again, that's one of the main things with the response time is that you have to be careful and make sure you're not going to hit any vehicles on the road. But I do notice that people are now parking cars on both sides of the road to where technically it is a one-way, and we don't have the way to go back and forth. And like I say, I would hate for a kid to run out from a car in front of a car and bam, you never saw the kid because, there's not that much visual there. Is there anything in the city or what we have now to where we can implement something to where we can kind of alleviate that issue or that problem?
That's a great question. Thank you. So we are trying to address it from different angles, and one such angle is like Ms. Simon mentioned, is through the planning phase, which this board plays an integral role in. But we are also looking for opportunities to make road improvements through traffic calming. We mentioned earlier the mobility plan, the master plan that we will be looking to complete within the next 10 years. Ideally, if we do that, what that plan will do is that it will actually allow us to look at the current and future best use for each of our transportation assets, and work with the community for input, but working with consultants also, we will develop a plan use for each of our roadways. And there will be local roads that could be earmarked for transportation, for lighting improvements. And it will all be driven by a number of different factors, including crime data, accident data, etc. And by the way, one thing that I didn't mention earlier was commercial stops, like on 13th Street, for example, around the Public Works facility. You have a UPS truck making a delivery, an Amazon truck making a delivery. They stop right in the travel lane, forcing traffic, to go around them because they don't have anywhere to pull over. So when you build complete streets, that's something else. It's just not bus stops that you actually accommodate, but you also accommodate for the delivery trucks and the mail truck to make those stops in there. So we are trying, but I think the best single thing that we could do is pursue that mobility master plan that's going to actually allow us to take a comprehensive look at each of our roadway sections and discuss what improvements can actually be made to help us make that the safest, most connected, the most accessible road section that we can make it. And then the other benefit of that too is that any development or significant redevelopment of properties also contributes fees, because with the mobility plan, typically, the community will implement, fees associated with that will help to fund those improvements and also maintain those improvements.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
My pleasure.
I got a quick question, Mr. Travieso. Has anybody from the city, from any department, have gone around these roadways? Because if I'm a fire chief, your department or whatever, and I go down his street and I can't get by with my car, I know you were looking 5-10 years ahead, but what are we doing to address the issue now?
So if the question is whether fire rescue is able to access properties,
Well,
I'm not aware of any.
Somebody has to be going around our roadways and figuring out this is where we need improvements.
Yeah, so we do take regular inventory of our roadways, and as a matter of fact, we recently were conducting a pavement condition analysis, which brought us out, to analyze and to inspect our rights of ways. But again, I'm not aware of any situation where the road is, the road with the travel lane with, right now is completely prohibitive of access, by the first responders. Does that answer your question?
Yes, I guess
Okay.
Mr. Wilder will have to go offline with you and let you know where.
But absolutely. In
And
fact,
again, maybe
but we have Mr.
the
Golden
fire
here.
chiefs can
Right. So he would know
speak on this,
definitely.
but
I'm sorry, what was the specific question?
But Mr. Golden, so in your expertise, in your 30 plus years of expertise, it's here in the city of Riviera Beach, have there been any issues to where, given on a call, you got to the point to where you got to a road and you couldn't use that transportation to get down that road, or had to make an alternate to be able to get around because of the traffic or the parked vehicles on both sides?
Yeah, it happens. It's not something that happens all the time. Normally, like you say, people having a party or something, and cars are parked on both sides of the street, or a funeral or something like that, where a lot of people tend to congregate. Then it's hard to navigate down those streets. There are a few streets, in the Monroe Heights area and different places like that, that is hard just to get the trucks down normally. And then, like you said, people do make the front of their yard or the swell area as a parking area. And it definitely makes it a lot more difficult to navigate our vehicles down those streets. But I'm not saying it's an anomaly, but it's not something that happens all the time. And then our men and women are trained to be able to navigate those. And if we have to, we'll try and locate that vehicle owner, or we'll take an alternate route to try and get around. But those are precious minutes or precious seconds.
Absolutely.
If you're having chest pain, or you having a heart attack, or your house is on fire, all those things are like inherent delays, as is speed bumps. The way we respond to calls, we have what's called the fastest unit response that comes from our dispatch. And they build in delays with speed bumps, stop signs, and stuff like that to try to get our fire trucks to your house as fast as possible. It could be a truck right up the street, but this other truck is driving, and although it's not its own, it will pick that truck that's driving because those people are already out and they're moving, and they can get to you faster. So we fire rescue have to keep all that stuff in mind when we're talking about redoing the roads and stuff like that, because it kind of slows us down, which inherently delays us from getting to Mr. and Mrs. Smith.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.
And I just also wanted to mention that the city is in fact working on a parking master plan, which I think is going to be helpful to this concern. In some cases, where appropriate, we may be able, and to maintain the level of service and accessibility that's required, we may be able to designate, updating our ordinance, where appropriate, but we may be able to designate parking on a specific side of the street every day, or you may designate parking on opposite sides of the street on different days to allow for that. During my service in the city of West Palm Beach, that's a practice, that we implemented effectively. It does require some enforcement, but it did allow us to conduct our street sweeping operations, conduct our solid waste collection, because in some cases, if somebody's having a party or it's the day after a holiday, and I had a lot of guests over at my house, the trucks may not be able to access my property to provide that service. So by designated parking, let's say in 13th Street, you might designate, that parking is going to happen on this side of the street, on that other street, on that other side of the street. That may help alleviate and decongest some of this right away where appropriate. So, there are some opportunities to come along with the implementation of the parking master plan.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, sir.
Yes, Traviata, one last thing. I need to speak to you offline. I live in Monroe Heights, and that design is one of the worst that I've ever seen. but I knew politics was involved. We had a different design originally, and a new council came in. I know the story, but it's bad.
We'll be happy to look at it. I'll leave a card with me.
I'm sorry.
I'll leave a business card.
You,
I'll leave my business card.
Oh,
so-
okay.
So you can contact me.
okay. But it's bad. I don't know who decided to put the drain down the middle of the street, and that's a whole lot of craziness.
We'll be happy to take a look.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Question, Chair.
Yes, Mr. Wiley.
Sir, Mr. Travioso? Oh, yeah. All right. And why I have you here, again, I know we addressed a certain part because I was a big advocate on 13th Street because I live actually in that area where the city hall is there. I live in the Federal Gardens area. And I know some of the issues that we have we put in the traffic calming. That was one of the suggestions we had, was to put the traffic calming here because we had vehicles coming in. And believe me, UPS has done a great job with the trucks coming in. They actually travel around with the big 18-wheelers. The smaller trucks, that's fine because that's all temporary. But one of the issues I have is that we still have some of the companies there that are coming through with the huge trucks or whatever like that, and they're pretty much destroying that traffic calming area there. Now, what I did was in college, I had a few friends that worked for the Department of Transportation, as I was working for Department of Education and Environmental Protection there. And I called them up to speak to them about that situation because I was told that we could do nothing about that because that was something that was done from the state level. So when I called the state level, my friend explained to me that no, that's not. That is actually a city level issue.
It's a local road.
It's a local road, right?
So, and I didn't mention this earlier, but in the master parking plan that the city, has adopted, portions of the city council actually adopted certain portions of the ordinance, and will be coming back later to consider some additional measures as well. There are stipulations in there that will designate a truck route in the city. So obviously that will have to be enforced, and there will be signage, and there will also be when you do route finding or waymaking.
Right.
There'll be wayfinding signs, and also when you type in and you map a route, let's say on Google Maps, it's gonna actually factor in what those truck routes are and guide you
around
through them.
Right.
Of course, you always have the option to not follow that.
Right.
But we are going to take whatever measures can be taken to inform the public, particularly drivers that are often visiting, they're not local. Inform them of our truck route, and then also work with our public safety partners, to make sure that we're enforcing those policies to the fullest extent possible, because there's a significant impact not only for safety, but also there's a heavy impact on our roadways
And
the durability of the roadways. When you are driving heavy equipment, heavy trucks, on the roads.
Right.
But there will be a truck route also implemented. So I think that will be a positive step.
Now, I think that should already be changed in, I think if I'm correct, Google Maps or whatever, because we called and had that set up to where once you put it to your phone and you were doing that route, it would actually take you outside of that route. If you were, I guess, put in as a truck or whatever, because I know for my GPS system, it actually are you an automobile or a truck, or I forgot what the terminology it had on there, but it actually identifies whether you a car or you're a traveling truck vehicle, 18-wheeler or whatever. And my thing was that when I asked about this years ago, they just stated that we could not put signage there because it was a state issue. When I called the state said it was a local issue. So then when I talked to someone again at the local issue, they said they couldn't do anything. The basic thing I really was looking for was just to put basic signage there, because there were times to where I would talk to one of the drivers and he would say, there's no sign there, nothing told me I could, and then my GPS just grabbed me through here. So I was going to see how good of a driver I was and see if I could manipulate my way through there. And I was like, that's not safe. And he said, I know. He said, but once I get in this area, there's no backing up. So I have to now try to manipulate my way through there. And I just kind of want to make it safe, not only for the people in that city, but make it safe for him also, just in case I don't want him to get into accidents or anything or hit a child or whatever, but to prevent him from going into that neighborhood when he can just loop around and go around MLK and then take Congress to 95. So I definitely want to get that taken care of.
And again, this signage supports and communicates what the city's policies and regulations are regarding traffic and transportation or the use of transportation systems. So when the traffic calming was installed, like the ones along 13th Street west of Avenue R, the types of vehicles that could traverse that traffic calming element, that was studied and that was considered, including first responders. So in situations, where certain types or sizes of vehicles could not be supported by that facility, we will be required to communicate that to the public so that, we don't end up with a, double tandem 18-wheeler down at that intersection. So with the establishment of the truck route, we will be analyzing the most feasible, the safest routes, and those will be, the rights of ways that will be included and mapped out to be identified on that wayfinding application.
Thank you. Sorry about that, fella.
No problem.
No more from you, Mr. Wiley, for a few minutes.
That's it. Cut off.
No, great questions. Excellent questions. If anything, under what's missing, I heard a couple things that we do not have in our language right now, and that included signage, and that included those truck routes, maybe possibly adding truck routes. So maybe if you want to put under yours where it says comments, you might want to add those. I thought those were excellent. Thank you for that. Looking at this language and taking out convenient, efficient, continuous, and aesthetically pleasing, I kind of like aesthetically pleasing still. But taking out some of those languages, we are switching that language to also say connected and accessible with this goal 4. So provide a safe, connected, accessible, possibly keep aesthetically pleasing transportation environment that's conducive to bicycling. And you guys decide. This is page 4.
Mr. Chair, I have one quick comment.
Yes.
That word aesthetically, that comment aesthetically pleasing, some can construe that as being subjective.
It is quite subjective.
What is aesthetically pleasing to one may not be to another. So, so we may want to think about that language of how to try to say the same thing, but in a manner that won't be so subjective.
I have a question. With that in mind, with the idea of walkability, one of the words that we use as opposed to aesthetically pleasing is comfortable, because it incorporates this, like it's great to see with my eye, but at the same time, when I'm walking there, I feel like I'm protected, but at the same time, I feel like, and these seats and everything act as barriers, but they're also pretty, quote unquote, right? They maybe comfortable might be a better term because it would include it, and at the same time make me feel like I can be there and I want to be there. I don't know. That would probably be, that's what came off the top of my head as one. But one of the comments that we get a lot, that I get a lot when I'm working in the community is, so if I ask, why are you frequenting here? Why do you want to be out here? Or why wouldn't you want to be out here? And a lot that comes to terms with our city has to do with how we look, right? And people use that a lot. And that's kind of how it fell into this. But I think maybe find another word that says it without saying that subjective aspect. I love that. That's a great point. This is mostly language that had already existed. We only changed to where we got our reference into this one. But by 2030, because we've changed it from 2010, increase the number of bicycle trips to work for recreation, in addition to commuting within the city by 2% by providing adequate facilities to promote a bicycling environment. And this is based off of the American Census Community Survey. And it shows that, and if we kind of keep reading, it says that the bicycle trips to work accounted for 0.6% of all trips within the city of Riviera, which is a total decrease because 10 years ago it was at 1.3%. So I think one of the things that, well, in 2000, so this is 20 years ago, it was at 1.3. So this objective is trying to increase our bicycle activity as a whole. And so you guys can think about if you think that this makes sense, or if we need to look at other things, because we do have other modes of transportation outside of this. Like right now, I've noticed around Palm Beach County, the scooters are a big thing that people are utilizing to get around, right? So maybe not, our focus may not be bicycles, but just think about alternative modes. Micro mobility might be a big thing for us to look at. And maybe even call out as opposed to bicycle and just say micro mobility. But this is, you guys decide, make your decisions. Oh, I'll give you a little time to think about that. That's on page 4. Make your comments on that. Mhm. So there are 2 more goals in transportation. This one, develop a safe, convenient, efficient public transportation system within Riviera Beach for residents, businesses, and visitors, with a particular emphasis on adequate service for local transportation disadvantaged population within the city. So this is looking at our idea of public transportation. I don't know if you heard that in the goal. Maybe if you guys read it again, see if you heard that, if it made sense, and if it pointed out that we're trying to encourage public transportation.
Yeah.
Yes, they could be. I think we've used safe, convenient, all that to say, and then we changed one last word. But in order for it to be safe and connected. So what's a better way for us to say this?
Excuse me, Mr. Chair.
Go ahead, Mr. Green.
The comments that the Public Works Director is making is pertinent and relevant. There should be a mic there so that it can be recorded.
Oh, so he's going to come up and do it, or I'm going to bring it to him.
Either way.
I think I can bring it to him, though.
Because the audience can't hear what he's saying.
Yes, thank you. I was commenting that some of our goals could benefit from being consolidated for efficiency and to be better understood by all the stakeholders. Earlier, I mentioned that in favor of, instead of addressing aesthetically pleasing or convenient or comfortable, we should focus on safety, accessibility, and connectivity. And I was also explaining that in planning, funding, prioritizing for implementation of various transportation projects that the city may pursue consistent with this comprehensive plan, we would already prioritize communities that are members of our community that may be transportation disadvantage or maybe underserved because perhaps there's not a mass transit route near their home, there's not a bike lane near their home, there's no ADA ramps, or ADA accessible sidewalks or walking paths near their homes. So that would automatically be our priority when it comes to our consideration of projects to be implemented. So I think that the goal number 5 is already contained on the other
In the other
goals.
goals. I have a question. I think board and Mr. Travioso, I wonder if in practice we keep that in mind, but it's not necessarily always correct for the simple fact of yes, if we're thinking about these different systems, it's for everyone, right? So it would include the disadvantaged and it include anybody that just wants to take it. That's kind of when I read this, when I read this, I was like, but that's the whole point. We just want to encourage everyone onto the bus, eliminate having so much go out of there. But I wonder, was this written? Because if you notice there are no lines, that means it was something that we already had in our books. I wonder if when this was written, if the idea was prioritize them, but then know that we all want to encourage everyone to ride transportation and to ride mass transportation. So I didn't think to pull it out. But if you feel as if we can pull it out and board, you guys believe that it just doesn't make sense. There's no need to have it. Let's cross it out. Just to truncate on words, and it already says it. Because you said in the words safe, convenient, and accessible and connected, it already means for everyone.
Safe, accessible, and connected.
Sorry. I
Not
remember
convenient.
you hate convenient. I
Not convenient.
apologize. I will take
But-
that out.
And I agree that we do want to promote and facilitate, and some of these other municipalities you see are implementing mobility initiatives, that are providing free transportation within the downtown area, free transportation to and from underserved communities, for example, where maybe PalmTran doesn't access areas that are outside of the mass transit that stops. So those are ways, and a strong marketing campaign certainly can help to facilitate and to inform the public about the availability of those services, because if we don't tell them about it, then they're even less likely to use it. So I think that you can certainly encourage their use, but you don't so much do that by providing the facilities. I think that there has to be a strategic campaign, a sustained campaign to inform and to encourage and to facilitate by making it very affordable, very convenient, the public's use of these systems. So I do not believe that Goal 5 as written actually accomplishes the goal of facilitating. Accomplishes the goal of encouraging the public to use these systems. I think that's written, it encourages the city, or it proposes that the city will prioritize to build these systems in these areas that are transportation disadvantaged.
So we'll rewrite that together.
Sounds like a plan.
Okay, Ms. Shimon.
You're on the clock, young lady.
Really?
I'm on the clock. You guys asked the question, not me. Let's do it. This one's public transit and hurricane evacuation. So this is especially in our coastal high hazard areas, which is mostly our island and our coast, and ensuring that that we coordinate with PalmTran in order to prepare during disaster time of having them come inland. Something we've added that was not in our plan last time, so that we're updating and adding onto our plan is about our waterways. We've added language for our waterways, so I've added a new goal 6, and I did forget to underline this. I don't know why I just forgot to copy with an underline, but goal 6, balance the needs of all waterway users through agency partnerships and collaboration. And then we'll go in more detail about who those collaborators are. Those collaborators, it's become support waterway activities. So support activities of recreational recreational, commercial, industrial, or other waterway users to contribute to safe and efficient, and maybe we'll think of a better way of saying this, Mr. Travioso, community mobility. This is, like I said, new language, and so we're going to need your help in cleaning up the language, but we do know that we need to add language for our waterways, so our blueways to be connected. Coordination with the Port of Palm Beach, continue to coordinate policies, land use plans, and action items between the Port of Palm Beach master plan and the city's long-range plans or other master plans. More Port of Palm Beach, so we've lumped Port of Palm Beach into this goal 6 as they utilize the waterways as well. The city shall seek to achieve consistency and coordination between the port's long-range transportation and resource planning and the city's comprehensive plan. What I would say is missing is that we didn't talk about our rails. And so I think we're going to need to go back and add rails. But you guys tell me what you think.
Real as far as what?
Well, I was just talking Port of Palm Beach and we talked mostly waterway and we didn't talk about the coordination of their rail system. For example, we're all backed up at 4:30, 5 o'clock, and that's based off of conversations that they had with us on timing for the CSX line, and then they're coming in and it's like, but that time is not our favorite for you to do that. But there are coordinations that we can do within the rail system for here in the city. So just being part of that conversation and coordinating more.
I think that's important.
Yes.
Very important.
Yeah, we got stuck today.
That's like to do.
That's been a problem for years.
Okay, so that was the last for our transportation. But Mr. Travioso is going to hang out maybe. No, we do bring up mobility later on, but we've already covered it in our section, and then we're just going to slide through it. So yes, you may go. Would you go ahead and leave the mic for Mr. Young? He might want it. That'd be great. All right, this one's gonna be faster. It doesn't have as much. It's that purple page that you have, and it's this one single page, as you notice.
If I may suggest, Mr. Wiley and Mr. Fernandez, when he gets back, I gave the purple page, the Park and Recreation sheet, to our Parks and Recreation Director, and I suggest you take a look at the whole page as the director is doing, and see if there's any comments really for the whole 6. I think this way, if you look at them as a whole, and then if you have any comments, we'll go from there. Thank you.
I'm honestly hoping that I gave you the most up to date. We'll find out by objective 5 and 6. So Mr. Young and I have worked on the objectives here on several occasions. I think we've met about 3 or 4 times going through each and every one. And so so these are coming from the expert's brain itself as to how we want to look at parks and recreation. And this includes, this is helping to support what the parks plan is trying to do currently. As you all remember, that our parks plan was recently adopted about 2 years ago. And so this is supporting the community's voice and some of the things that we've heard ourselves. To this very day, every time we talk to the community, the big thing is access to parks and being able to have more things for our different multi-generation, so our different folks, for wherever they are in their lifespan, to be able to enjoy our parks and increase their activity here in the community. So big thing I want us to see for this one is that, like I said, park accessibility is a big one. Park beautification is talked about a lot, improving our existing parks and also adding to our parks system. We looked at in the parks plan itself, the 5, 10, 20 years plan that they have. are different things from access to water, getting towards the water, access to our neighborhood parks, all the way to 20 years where we're looking at expanding, expanding to having nice greenways and different ways to travel within our city that is connected through a greenway system. And then in between, looking at recreation within our commercial destinations and redeveloping our parks facilities. So the big goal for parks is to provide a broad range of public and private recreation programs and activities at park and recreation facilities that include open space. Added language says with convenient access. So I guess he doesn't mind the word convenient, with convenient access for all residents of Riviera Beach and visitors. If you love it, put a green. If you can't stand it, please put an orange. And this is on your purple form. You too, Mr. Gallen. The objectives to support that goal is when we're looking at waterfront access. The city of Riviera Beach shall continue to preserve and improve, added language, public access to the public waterfront and enhance 1,000 linear feet of city-owned direct ocean beach park access. We can talk about that if there are some questions later on where our parks are. Wait a minute.
1.2.
Huh. It's under it. Give me a second. Hello. There we go. 1.2, recreation standards and facilities. The city of Riviera Beach shall continue to maintain a system of public recreation facilities that meet the needs of the population. If you feel like it needs more language, please put that in the comment section. If you think that we need to remove language, please put that in the comment section or just cross it out so that way I see it, or just add in.
Chair.
Sir?
I have a question for Mr. Young. One thing I know is I was doing a little business in Jupiter at one point at their police department there, and I noticed that the kids were leaving the park and they were coming over, and I was kind of wondering what was going on, and the kids was running to this area, and the director or the teacher had them doing these little exercises because they had a park area, but it necessarily wasn't, rides and slides and stuff like that. It was almost like I guess a body weight room where the kids would work out and they would kind of like do different things. And he had them on this little area and he had a cover over it and everything. And it was something that the kids was really, really enjoyed doing. And I guess it was getting ready for baseball season or something like that. And I know we have a big football program here and everything. And I think I haven't been around to all the parks in Riviera Beach, but is that something that we can implement here in the city of Riviera Beach to where the kids can do that? And it's almost like a workout thing for the kids to be able to kind of build themselves up. And not only that, I know everyone can't afford LA Fitness and all of the places there, but either, the adults can be able to go there. And it's just something simple as just working your body weight, just keeping yourself busy and everything. And then maybe having, I think, even I was talking to the guy there, he was saying that they were building a tarp over it. So even though if it may be raining or something like that, it will protect them from the sun because, of course, it's pretty hot here in Florida. But I thought that was just a great idea, and I kind of got on and kind of tested some of the machines out, and I just thought that was an excellent idea of how they had that, and the kids were all excited, and they were like lined up, and one was counting how many he was doing, and the other guy, he would leave and go to the next one, and the kids were just all excited about it, and I was just like, man, that'd be something great to have inside the city of Riviera Beach.
So, good evening, Casey Young, Parks and Recreation Director. So, outdoor fitness pods is kind of what we call them. So a lot of times we will have them where playgrounds are, and then you may have an outdoor fitness pod for exercising for the parents to stay active while the kids are on the playground. So we do have some of those in our parks. Long Pine comes to mind as one that is probably the newest one that was implemented when that park went through its improvements. But there's also one out at the beach where you have a pavilion, you have a playground, and then you also have the outdoor fitness equipment there for you to be able to work out. So those are things that we're looking at as we develop new parks, as we do park improvements, along with, some of the bond money that we have available. Like when we go into doing design for new parks, those are some of the elements that we're looking to include in those conversations.
It'd definitely be good to put one at the Wells Recreation Center area, right where they're playing football, and like you say, hey, you send the kids over to do some exercise or whatever, as almost a punishment, but technically not a punishment. But still, it'll be something to make them, I think it was something exciting because, like I say, to see the kids kind of excited about wanting to work out and build themselves up and everything, and like I say, even seeing some of the parents, come over and kind of work out a little bit, it was something that was, I thought was a very good idea. And I was like, man, it'll be really good if we can bring that to Riviera. But like you say, you already, getting
We
stuff
do
like
have
that.
some of our parks, but again, a good point that you made too is, the affordability and accessibility to be able to work out. So again, looking at adding some of those elements to like some of our neighborhood parks so that people who can't travel to LA Fitness, can't
Right.
travel to some of the fitness centers throughout the city, will have that in their neighborhood that's in walking distance so that they can have access to those equipment to exercise.
Thank you. Keep up the good work, sir.
Thank you.
I love that. Objective 1.3, bikeways, greenways, and park accessibility. The city shall enhance park accessibility and connectivity to ensure availability to all ages and varying modes of transit. Within this objective, some of the policies that are aligning with it, they start to tie into the mobility plan that we mentioned earlier, and that would be helping. That plan would help us to improve our connectivity and accessibility to these parks. Objective 1.4, the city shall continue to increase the availability of open space through the use of land development regulations and private developments, and shall inventory the acreage of such open space in order to exceed its adopted level of service. This is very important when we start looking at development plans that come in and the amount of open space that is required, if required. And one of the things that we have as a city is that we are losing a lot of our open space because we're growing. And so we have to be careful on when we're doing our reviews about what is being proposed and keeping that in mind. So tying it into what the Land Development Code says. And so us as reviewers of those site plans, we do that, but we also ask the board to do the same in order for us to have opportunities for our little ones and for our big ones to enjoy our open space and not just our cement concrete jungle. Recreational programs. And I do want to say shout out to our youth football team that won champions last time. But the city shall provide recreational programs and activities that are as financially feasible and based in part on resident need and demand, providing recreation services in an essential function.
One thing.
Yes,
Yeah,
please.
okay. One thing with this, it said the city shall continue to provide recreational programs. One of the most important things I think, and I hate to say this, but because I'm an educator, and one thing with having the recreational programs, I think we definitely need to implement some form of education with the recreational program, to where not only we have kids learning how to the physical aspect of playing sports and everything, but learning the mental aspect of life and how to be successful also, especially with the situation with I'm pretty sure we've all seen the scores of our schools here in the city of Riviera Beach, and how important it is for us to raise up those scores of the grades of the school, to where even with the recreational programs, and as important it is to keep the kids busy, but we also want to keep them mentally busy also by getting them prepared to be able to be successful in life while still having, having the recreational programs available for them also. But we also want to prepare them for life also. So is there anything that we can do with this specific area where we can focus a little bit more on, a lot more on education added into that recreational piece?
I've got a question, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Gunn.
Mr. Wild, I think that's a very good idea, but I'm wondering if the recreation area, that's sounding a lot like a tutorial program, and I may be wrong, but can the two be combined? I guess that's the question.
So I'll look at it in two ways, and Mr. Young, if you want to jump in, you can as well. The floor is yours. But I will say, I know for summer camp that happened this year, that the Parks and Rec was leading, there was STEM involved in summer camp this year with that idea of doing that. I know in their aftercare programs they've been doing, they've been adding this component unofficially. I don't know if it's become official, but I know they've been doing that unofficially. So I don't, Mr. Young can be the one to talk to if that's part of it. But I will want to add that we have a new section, a new element that's going to be added to our comp plan this time around, where we are addressing education in that way, in order to, so it's not on just Parks and Rec, but it's how are we as a city addressing education, and what are some of the things that we have in the city or that we need to add into the city. So that would include like our YEP program that we have. Libraries is going to be moved into that section, and so that could be added language that we add to that section to address improving our school system.
Excellent point about education. So when we give a definition of recreation programs, it is very inclusive of all those elements. So again, it is the physical activity, but it is also the educational piece, the life skill piece, the learning piece. And again, when we put this definition up here, or this objective, as far as recreation programs and activities, it's not necessarily only focused on youth. It is also focused on our adults, on our seniors. So again, when I look at this, our goal is to make sure that we provide recreation opportunities for everyone. So again, part of that is based on the residents' needs and demand. So again, that's us engaging with our community, finding out exactly what kind of programs or activities they are interested in, and then, having those conversations within and providing those opportunities for people to come in and provide and participate in different activities. So again, it is inclusive of all activities: physical, education, life skills. All those things, elements are encompassed into our recreation program, the menu that we want to provide to our community.
Excellent. Objective 1.6, intergovernmental cooperation to enhance recreation opportunities and meet levels of service guidelines. The city shall utilize the resources of other governmental agencies, such as the school districts and county, to enhance recreational opportunities. I personally think we should use terms like, I don't know, shall utilize, but partner or
Form partnerships.
form partnerships. This one was not on your list, so I do know I didn't.
Mr. Chair, could we go back to that one?
1.6?
Yeah, I wanted to get Mr. Wiley's input because it looked like it's incorporating the school district there. And I don't know if that's an area too that could address Mr. Wiley's very valid concern, which I agree with.
It's like adding an educational component, Ms. Simon. I know what Parks and Recreation are doing now unofficially, but in writing, can we add an educational component to the Parks and Recreation section?
Again, when we come to recreation programs and activities, I think it encompasses everything. So the educational piece, again, it's not just limited to just, again, when we think of recreation activities, we always go straight to the physical part. Again, as recreation professionals, we try to make sure that activities and programs includes everything. So the educational piece, very inclusive programs is what you want to develop as a recreation department. So again, we want to make sure that we're inclusive, and in those things, the wants and demands of our community are what we want to include in our program guide in a sense.
Do you think, Mr. Young, so at the beginning of each element, we'll kind of have like a,
You talking to the mic?
sorry. At the beginning of each element, we'll kind of define what that element is talking about and talking to. And maybe and usually we have definitions, so that way we all are defining it the same way. So maybe what we'll do at the beginning of the Parks and Rec element is that we'll ensure that it says recreation means this, and it includes the education of all, whether that education be of books, but also of learning to cook and learning to dance and learning to whatever. But it's so we all define it the same way. Yeah. The last objective for the evening is objective 1.7, public-private coordination. The city shall assure the coordination of public and private resources to meet recreational demands by establishing an ongoing strategy to improve public-private input and coordination. This is really important, especially when we talk about when developers come in and the things that we go bring to the negotiation table. So, and saying, hey, you want to increase density here, and we need more park space here for our community. And so these are so this is just one example of this public-private coordination, but it's important that we have this in our books so that way we feel empowered to be able to ask this as we improve our park system and try to add, because as we all know, we don't have a lot of land left, but we can say, hey, on top of your tower, we place the park up there, or next to it, we have leisure parks for folks. Anywho, so that is our last objective to review. You have the option of continuing to look at your great orange and purple sheets in front of you. Please wrap up the last of your comments. Thank you for participating. This was really engaging. And that's all I have for you this evening. The next one that we'll be discussing, I cannot remember, but we'll be doing it at the end of August. So I'll send out an email. We'll send out an email to let you know. And everything for our audience at home as well. Everything is on the Riviera 2040 website, so everyone is able to view them as well. And they're also attached to these agendas. So please tell your friends, please tell folks in your districts to visit the website, continue to visit the website. We had an uptick for a while that was really good, so I'm going to continue to push it out some more. But that's where all of our draft language is, and we'll be returning in the month of August, September, within our community to push out into our different community centers and community meetings. So if you know of your district chair is having a community meeting, please let me know. So that way I can show up and be able to present to the community as well, and to go to the different programs that you all have. So thank you everyone for your time. And if there are any other questions.
Excellent presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Simone.
No problem. Thank you.
Miss Simone, I'm sorry.
Yes. Thank you.
I'm thinking about the other Simone.
Same difference.
If there's nothing else, do we have any public comments, Ms. Weathers?
No, sir.
Do we have any staff updates, Ms. Thompson?
We will have a very good meeting next month. We got about 3, maybe 4 items possibly on that agenda. So a couple rezonings, a land use change. So it's going to be a very good working meeting in August.
Take it easy, our overtime budget, Mr. Thompson, our overtime budget. Take it easy on those, long meetings, huh? Spread it out. We love to spread things out. I'm not speaking for the rest of us.
We'll try my best. I'll try my best.
I agree with the chair.
That's,
Oh, wait a minute. Do we have a motion on it? No,
Yeah.
hold on a minute. All right. So, yeah. So the next planning and zoning board meeting is August 15th, 2024.
Correct.
correct.
Okay, it is now 8:33. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So move.
Second.